Good afternoon, students. So last two classes we have discussed about immune system and its components, and then we discussed about the communicable diseases. So in today's class we'll take up a non-communicable disease, which is cancer. Now what is cancer? The very first question. It's a terrifying illness. True. It's a very heterogeneous group of diseases. Again, true. There are a lot of complications associated with it, and a complex problem in healthcare delivery and public policy. Now, Cancer Research UK defines cancer as a disease where cells grow out of control and invade, erode and destroy normal tissue. So, clinically speaking, cancer is a term used to describe a large group of diseases that are characterized by cellular malfunctions. What are these different malfunctions? These are abnormal growth of cells, then inability to invade other tissues and organs, and eventual necrosis of the tissue or organ leading to death of the affected individual. Now, so there's a very distinct difference between healthy cells and cancer cells. So healthy cells are programmed to know what to do and when to do it, but cancer cells, they do not have this intrinsic programming and therefore grow and replicate out of control. So also they serve no physiological function. So these cells, these cancerous cells are termed as neoplasm, and the unregulated growth of this neoplasmic mass leads to the formation of a clump known as tumor. So to visualize it, so on the left you can see the normal cells that grow in monolayer, which means that they would grow in a single layer when cultured, but cancer cells, when grown, they would actually grow in clumps. Okay, they would clump together to form bigger masses. So these clumps are referred to as tumor. Now coming to the cellular basis of cancer. Now as we talked about it, cancer is characterized by abnormal and uncontrolled growth of cells, or from a loss of normal growth control. So they are proliferating a lot because they lack the normal checkpoints that are used to check the growth of the cells. Now in normal tissue, the rate of new cell growth and old cell death are kept in balance. So for growth we actually need that newer cells are formed, and it's also important that the old cells actually keep dying. Okay, so what normally happens? So in this figure, if you see, so there's normal cell division. Okay, then at a certain point of time the cell is damaged, which basically means that no repair mechanisms can function. So this is at this point that the cell is deemed to be destroyed. Okay, and it undergoes what is known as a programmed cell death, okay, or apoptosis. Now in cancer, what happens is that this balance is disrupted. So there are cells which actually have no checkpoints on their growth, and they proliferate indefinitely. Okay, leads to formation of an uncontrolled mass of cells. So this disruption in the balance can result from uncontrolled cell growth and loss of cell ability to undergo apoptosis. So the newer cells are dividing indefinitely, and the older cells which are there, they do not undergo cell death, which basically leads to an overload of cells in that area and leads to formation of tumor. Now coming to types of tumor. So tumor can be of two types. The first one is benign tumor, or which is referred to as the non-cancerous tumor. What happens here are, so these tumors grow in only one place. Basically they cannot spread, or they lack the capability to invade other parts of the body. So these are enclosed in a fibrous shell or a capsule inside which they are contained. Even though they are abnormally growing, the growth is somehow contained to a particular area. Now they can be dangerous if they press on vital organs. Yeah, so even though they cannot spread or invade, however, if these benign tumors are actually they occur on vital organs, they might press on the organ and they might affect the functionality of the organ. So this stays confined to its original location. Now the other type of tumor is malignant tumor, which is cancerous in nature. What do we mean by that? So this tumor is capable of invading surrounding tissues or invading the entire body. So they invade by emitting this claw-like protrusions that disrupt the normal physiology of cells, and basically these cells can be thought of they are similar to viruses. Basically they have the ability to infect other cells, but not in a way that virus does. We'll see how do they do that. So most malignant cells become metastatic, and the process is called metastasis. So basically the spreading of cancer from one location to other location is basically referred to as metastasis. So again, to talk about some of the important points. So malignant tumors grow rapidly. The rate of growth is rapid, but in case of benign tumors it is slow. So nature of growth, again, malignant tumors have the capability to invade surrounding tissue, whereas the benign tumors expand in the same tissue. Then malignant tumors are able to metastasize via the bloodstream and the lymphatic system, whereas the benign tumor lacks this ability. Then cell differentiation is usually poor in case of malignant tumor. Okay, so the cells are not differentiated basically, and in benign tumor the differentiation is normal, like your normal cells in the tissues in the area. Now coming to events in metastasis. So how does exactly metastasis happen? So it begins, the diagram if you see, so this is the outer layer of the skin. Okay, this is the skin basically. So this is the basal lamina, which divides the connective tissue from the actual tissue. So this cells in red, this actually denotes the benign tumor actually. So or these are basically a clump of cancerous cells. Now these cells break through the basal lamina, okay, and they invade the capillary. So this white thing is the capillary that passes close to this tissue, and these cells now invade. So they extend into the connective tissue, and then they intrude the capillary, and they travel through bloodstream. Now out of 1000 only one cell survives, but that one cell is enough to actually to bring about metastasis. So what happens here is that, so these malignant cells actually would at some point would adhere to the wall of the capillary. Okay, the capillary that passes by very close to some organ. Let's just say, for example, we take the liver. Okay, so the capillary that passes close to the liver, so the malignant cells clump here, then again they escape from the capillary and they invade the liver tissue here. So this escape from capillary is called as extravasation. Okay, and then in the end, so after invading the liver tissue, they form a clump of cells, okay, and they metastasize in the liver. Okay. Now next, coming to major types of cancers. Okay, so the first one is carcinoma, which is basically a cancer that begins in a tissue that lines the inner and outer surface of the body, basically related to skin. So this arises from cells. So what is the origin of these cancerous cells? So this arises from cell originating in the endodermic or ectodermic germ layer during embryogenesis. So these are derived from those cells. Now common carcinomas are skin cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer, stomach cancer and pancreatic cancer. Now the next type of cancer is lymphoma. So this is basically cancer of the lymphatic system. Okay, so it occurs when B and T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes, the ones that we discussed about in the class where we discussed the immune system. So these transform and begin growing and multiplying uncontrollably. The next type of cancer is sarcoma. So now this is the type of cancer that arises from malignant growth of connective tissue derived from primitive mesoderm. Okay, so our carcinoma actually was derived from these cells which were of ectodermic or endodermic origin. Now this is from mesoderm. Okay, so these cells are of mesenchymal origin. It includes bone cancer and muscle cancer. Now next is leukemia. Leukemia arises due to uncontrolled proliferation of blood corpuscles and their precursor in the bone marrow, and leads to formation of increased number of leukocytes. So it is characterized by an abnormal increase in the number of immature WBCs, which are just called as blast. Okay. So now let's talk about the factors that cause cancer. Okay, so the first there are many different agents that cause cancer. These can be physical agents, these can be chemicals, these can be our dietary components. Okay, so let's first talk about the physical agents, which is basically radiation. Now what are the different types of radiation? These could be ionizing radiations. Okay, so these could be ultraviolet radiations. So ionizing radiation basically would comprise of your gamma rays, okay, and your X-rays. Then we have ultraviolet radiation, then we have microwave radiation, and then electromagnetic fields. Okay. Now let's talk about the first part is the man-made radiation, man-made ionizing radiations. So so you know how atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So that left a lot of radiation in the place. So that radiation still continues to manifest in the form of different types of cancers. And then in Chernobyl, so there was this accident with the nuclear power plant, which led to a lot of escape of radiation into the city. So there people still get even though it has been deemed safe to visit, but radiation still has those people who survived it, their progenies, they still have got different types of cancers. So these are some of the pictures that signify it. So next, coming to naturally occurring ionizing radiations, which is the ultraviolet radiation. So the sun emits three types of UV radiations: UVA, UVB and UVC. Now UVA consists of longer wavelengths, and this has the capability to penetrate deep into skull and damage the collagen. So this results in premature aging and helps prime the skin for developing cancers. Okay. Next kind of ionizing radiation is the UVB or the ultraviolet radiation. Now these are short wavelengths and are believed to be primary rays causing sunburn and ultimately resulting in cancers. Okay. Now UVC, these are of the shortest wavelength, and these are deadly to plants and animals. Normally the ozone layer in the atmosphere, it does a good job of shielding us from the UVC's rays, but in recent years, so due to ozone depletion, this UVC rays are able to penetrate the atmosphere, and because of this, the incidences of skin cancer has gone up. Okay. So basically these are the three different types of radiation. Next, coming to radio frequency, microwave frequencies and electromagnetic fields. Now radio frequencies and microwave frequencies do not have sufficient energies to cause ionizations in the target tissues. So how do they actually cause damage? So what are the sources of these radiations? So these are mobile phones, radars, medical devices and kitchen appliances such as microwave. Okay. So mobile phones emit radio frequency radiation and generates electromagnetic fields. So the intensities at which these rays, so these frequencies are actually emitted from the sources, so these lead to induction of DNA damage, and this has been studied on laboratory scale. Okay. So next, coming to chemical agents. So what are the different chemicals that actually cause cancer? So these are benzene and other ring like chemicals, then environmental toxins such as this aflatoxins. So this is actually a kind of poison that grows on peanut plants, okay. And then we have asbestos, arsenic, chromium, okay, nickel. So let's look at some of the commonly found chemical agents and the organs that they affect and what is their source. So lung and pleura, or the pleural membrane. So the carcinogen here is yeah, so maybe I missed a point. So all of these factors that cause cancer, these agents are referred to as carcinogens, cancer causing agents. So yeah, so the carcinogen that affects the lungs and pleural membranes is tobacco, arsenic, asbestos, silica, coal tar. So the sources are aluminum production, coal gasification, coke production, hematite mining, and painters. Then again, oral cancers are one of the most prevalent form of cancers. So that is caused by the carcinogens, which are tobacco, alcohol, nickel compounds. So these are commonly acquired by people who work in the boot and shoe production and furniture manufacturers. Okay. Then so these are the other different organs which are affected. For example, the stomach, the colon, the liver, and the bladder. Okay. Next, coming to the factors causing cancer. Okay. These are the what are the nutritional agents. Now, mutagens in food due to heating of proteins can cause damage to DNA. Okay. So food normally contains these agents, some of which when overheated or heated could lead to the formation of cancerous cells. Now the first one among it is alcohol. So this is best established as a dietary risk factor. Then fat. Now this excess of fat could cause cancer of breast, colon, prostate, and endometrium. Now red meat. So red meat, basically the sources of which are commonly goat, lamb. Okay. So these increase the risk of colorectal cancer. Now how do you combat this kind of nutritional agents? I mean, how do you balance your food intake so that you actually prevent cancer from happening? So first is taking a lot of fruits and vegetables. So these fruits and vegetables contains antioxidant minerals, fiber, potassium, carotenoids, vitamin C, folate, and other vitamins, which actually would prevent the oxidative damage being caused to the cell, and they would actually minimize the the different stressful agents that actually cause mutations in these cells. Okay. Then fiber. So fiber, a lot of dietary fiber would actually be fermented by the luminal bacteria of the colon. So its bulking effect, actually it reduces the colonic transit time, and then and reduces the binding of potentially carcinogenic luminal chemicals. Basically, the carcinogens present in the lumen cannot bind, and thus they help in producing short chain fatty acids that actually have anti-carcinogenic properties. So these commonly fiber induces apoptosis. Okay. Next comes biological factors. So what the different viruses that actually cause so viruses also have the ability to induce cancers. So first category is DNA viruses. So there are HepaDNA viruses causing hepatic liver related cancers, then papilloma viruses, then your Epstein-Barr virus, then Kaposi's sarcoma associated herpes virus, then human polyoma virus. Then in RNA viruses we have retroviruses, HTLV, human immunodeficiency virus, and hepatitis C virus. So all these viruses in some capacity would lead to suppression of the immune system and would lead to development of cancer. So basically, when immune system fails to check the unregulated growth of cells, so this also leads to formation, due to leads to the condition of cancer. Okay. Next is let's talk about what is the genetic basis of cancer. Okay. So cancer is caused due to genetic transformation of cell, that is mutations in genes that control cell division. Now, like we talked, cell division is the most important aspect of this proliferating cells in the proliferating cancer cells. So there are two broad categories of genes which are implicated in carcinogenesis. So these are oncogenes, okay, that stimulate cell division, and then there are tumor suppressor genes which slow the process of this cell division. Okay, so the function of these oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes are polar opposite. These are polar opposites. Okay, they have opposite effects. Now first let's talk about oncogenes. So oncogenes encode proteins that promote loss of growth control and malignancy. Now oncogenes are derived from pre-oncogenes, which are genes that encode proteins having a normal role in cells' normal activities. So proto-oncogenes are normal. So proto-oncogenes basically code for proteins that have normal function in the cell growth. Now proto-oncogenes become oncogenes when they gain a function. Okay, so there is a gain of function mutation happening to them. So as a result, the mutations can alter either the protein or its expression and cause the proto-oncogene to act abnormally and promote the formation of a tumor. So basically, proto-oncogenes acting in a different way, acting in a way that is not normal, not performing their functions, leads to the development of oncogenes. So gain in function mutation of proto-oncogenes leads to cancer. The examples of oncogenes are SRC and MYC. So if you see the SRC and MYC, they are both italicized. It is because the gene names, we often italicize them. Okay. Next is tumor suppressor genes. So these genes encode proteins that restrain the cell growth and prevent cells from becoming malignant. Now, if your oncogenes are operating to divide uncontrollably, make the cell divide uncontrollably, there are tumor suppressor genes that actually check this particular activity, this process from happening. Okay, so they have antagonistic effects. So these act recessively. So since both now by this we mean that both parents have copies of this tumor suppressor genes, and now both of these copies must be deleted or mutated before this protective function is lost. So see, there are many cells which actually will convert this proto-oncogenes into oncogenes, and they will acquire the ability to to become cancerous in nature. But however, not all these cells in the body actually become cancerous. That is because of this innate tumor suppressor genes that actually function. So the loss of function mutation of this tumor suppressor genes leads to cancer. Now the examples of this are RB, which is retinoblastoma protein, and then P53, which is a cell cycle protein. So basically, cancer is caused by gain of oncogenes and loss of tumor suppressor genes. Okay, basically, see, we cannot cancer is multifactorial, so we cannot just say that only one of these, either oncogene is causing a cancer or a tumor suppressor gene, loss of function of tumor suppressor gene is causing cancer. Okay, it is actually both of them. Okay, so basically a cell needs multiple hits, multiple agents that could actually damage or that could actually cause abnormality in the cell physiology to convert it into a cancerous cell. Now the proteins that oncogenes encode are activated in a tumor cells, whereas the proteins that suppress these tumor suppressor genes that are inactivated. So basically, proteins encoded by oncogenes are activated, and proteins encoded by tumor suppressor genes are inactivated to bring about cancer. Okay. Now let's talk about Hanahan's 6 hallmarks of cancer. Okay. So there are 6 hallmarks, 6 important points that had been positively attributed to a cancerous cell. Okay. So the first is self-sufficiency in growth signals. Now oftentimes the normal cells basically require different different signaling, growth signaling molecules or signaling events to indicate or to direct it in a way to divide itself. Okay. So in case of cancer, so there is a self-sufficient in growth signals. So basically the cancerous cells are able to synthesize their own signaling molecules, okay, which would actually lead to uncontrolled growth of cells. Then next is insensitivity to anti-growth signals. Now it is important that so if the body synthesizes cell growth stimulating signals, then it also synthesizes proteins that would actually inhibit this cell proliferation. Okay. So cancer cells are clever enough to come up with a mechanism to evade this anti-growth signals, okay, or grow insensitive to them. The next is tissue invasion and metastasis. Now in case of benign tumor, but malignant tumors have the capability, they have the mechanism to invade tissue and cause metastasis, invade other tissues and cause metastasis. Then limitless replicative potential. Now you might be aware that normal cells basically they cannot replicate beyond a certain point. So that is because of the telomerase shortening of chromosomes, because of which they are not able to replicate or double indefinitely. So after a certain number of divisions they cease to divide. Okay. But cancer cells have actually overcome that problem and they are able to proliferate indefinitely. Okay. They can go on dividing without this problem of telomere shortening. Okay. So basically normal cells lack telomerase, differentiated cells lack telomerase, because of which they can only undergo certain rounds of division, because the telomere shortens, and then that is actually indicative of the beginning of aging process. Okay. But in case of cancer cells, they have telomerases, because of which the telomere doesn't get shortened and the cells can divide indefinitely. The next is sustained angiogenesis. Okay. So let's just say the cancerous, this clump, this tumor is growing at a place. So see, these are cells. Okay. So even though they are, we say that these are abnormal cells, basic requirement of them, so the cells still need nutrition, the cell needs oxygen in order to survive. Okay. So basically they need blood capillaries to provide them with all of these things. So they actually have the ability to attract or to bring about angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is formation of new capillaries. Okay. So from the existing capillaries, the tumor growing at a place can actually it can begin the formation of new capillaries that would bring it blood circulation, and hence the cells would actually access the bloodstream in the process. Okay. They could invade the capillary and then they could enter the bloodstream. Now next is evading apoptosis. Now programmed cell death is intrinsic to all cells, which basically means that the cell, so the ultimate fate of the cell is that it has to die, but cancer cells have found a way around it, and they do not undergo this programmed cell death. Okay. So they have mechanisms to overcome this process of induction of apoptosis. Okay. Next, coming to symptoms of cancer. See, basically depending on the type of cancer, the symptoms would vary, but there are certain signs which, when an individual manifests, it's better to get a comprehensive checkup done and to find out why exactly those symptoms are manifesting themselves. So um, yeah, so these symptoms are unintentional weight loss. So if you're suddenly losing a lot of weight, okay, and so you do not know what is the reason, it's better to get the diagnostic some of the diagnostics done, okay, in order to identify. Then fever, okay. So so this fever could be, so you could have persistent fever, okay, uh, without any infection or without any other signs and symptoms manifesting. Then being excessively tired, being lethargic, feeling lethargic all the time, okay. Then changes to skin, if your skin abnormally changes color, if suddenly you see that your skin becomes red, or it's changing color to, it's becoming brown black in color, so it's always a good idea to get a checkup done, okay. And then cancers of liver or kidney can actually cause a persistent fever of unknown origin. Like I said, so the fevers, the reason the fever is actually manifesting itself will not be easy to diagnose, okay. So comprehensive health checkup would help to find out the cause of the cause behind it. Now, how is cancer diagnosed? So there are different ways. So first is biopsy. So if the cancer is limited to a particular organ, so this tissue biopsy can actually help in finding out so basically by visualizing these cells, okay, in the tissues, it can be actually inferred if the cells are actually cancerous in nature. Then blood tests, which look for chemicals such as tumor markers. So these tumors, actually these cancerous cells actually secrete different proteins into the bloodstream. So some of the proteins can actually act as your biomarkers, okay. Basically these can act as identifying, so these can act as proteins that could be identified easily through blood test, and the confirmation of the presence of cancerous cells can be confirmed. Now bone marrow biopsy. So if you have lymphoma or leukemia, so the biopsy of bone marrow would provide with a clear idea. Then chest x-ray, and complete blood count, okay. So your the number of your T lymphocytes and circulating B lymphocytes, leukocytes, WBCs, so RBCs, all those would be clear through this complete blood count. Then CT scan, liver function tests, and MRI scans. So by scanning the body, by using this imaging techniques, the cancerous cell can be actually distinguished from the normal cells. Now next, coming to treatment of cancer. So the treatment of cancer actually involves surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, targeted cancer treatments, small molecule inhibitors, antibodies, cell-based immunotherapy, gene therapy, okay. So we are not going to discuss all of them, but a few important ones. For example, chemotherapy. Now drugs used to kill cancer cells. So chemotherapy basically consists of drugs that are used to kill cancer cells, and they disrupt some aspect of cell division, okay. So normally these Taxol based drugs were used. So Taxol is basically an agent that prevents the polymerization of your tubulin molecules to form microtubules, okay. So so this chemotherapy in general is toxic to healthy cells, okay. So chemotherapy is very generalized. See, so if it's killing cancer cells, it is also affecting the normal cells, okay, disrupting their physiology. So this is toxic to healthy cells, hair, bone marrow, lymphocytes, and epithelial cells of intestinal linings. So when a patient actually undergoes this chemotherapy, side effects include hair loss, nausea, vomiting, and reduced immune responses, okay. Next is radiation therapy. Now radiation therapy, whereas your chemotherapy was generalized, it was actually the whole body was so the entire body, the chemotherapeutic agents were circulating in the entire body. Radiation therapy, however, is localized. Okay, so this consists of high energy rays that are used to kill cancer cells. So the rays are concentrated at a point where the tumor grows, okay, and this leads to killing of these cells, okay. This stops them from growing and dividing. So this is a local treatment and can affect cancer cells only in the treated area, okay. However, because of radiotherapy, what happens is that the cells that surround the normal cells that surround the cancerous cells, they also get killed in the process. So the side effect is tiredness, skin reactions to such as rash or redness, and loss of appetite, and temporary lowering of the WBCs. Okay. Next, coming to surgery. So basically, if you have a benign tumor growing at a place, or even if you have a malignant tumor, if it has not metastasized, then surgery can be used to excise the tumor from that area. However, there are risks involved with surgery. The thing is, in the process of surgery, accidentally, if one of the cells escapes into the bloodstream, that might, or not just one cell, but if let's just say some cells escape into the bloodstream, so there's a possibility that metastasis will be induced. But in those cases, you have to weigh the benefits and the risks involved, okay. Whatever weighs more, you have to go with the kind of therapy most suitable. Now next is biological therapy or immunotherapy. Now this includes monoclonal antibodies which are derived from only one source, okay. Then interferons we already discussed, these are signaling molecules. Now interleukin 2, which is again signaling molecule, and then colony stimulating factors. So so these are the different chemicals used in the immunotherapy. Then side effects include temporary flu-like symptoms such as fever and chills, muscle aches and weakness, and loss of appetite and diarrhea, okay. So there are always, all of these treatments or these therapies, they do not come without side effects. The next is, so here are some recently launched drugs which are quite effective against treating cancer. The first is axitinib, which is used for treating advanced kidney cancer. Then vismodegib, which is used for advanced basal cell carcinoma. Then carfilzomib, which is for multiple myeloma, okay. So then aflibercept, which is which is given in combination with chemotherapy for metastatic colon cancer. And then regorafenib, which is for metastatic colorectal cancer, okay. So these are the recent drugs that are used. So how to prevent cancer, okay. So preventing cancer is requires a lot of active effect from the individual, active involvement of the individual. So first is eating a healthy diet. So avoiding excessive greasy fatty foods, avoiding potential, like we discussed, red meat, so avoiding red meat. So all of these would actually be categorized into the eating a healthy diet, okay. Then exercising daily, so keeping your body fit, keeping your immune system on point would also help to suppress any cancerous growth, because like I said, not all cells grow on to become cancerous, okay. There are many systems. So the first thing is your cells intrinsic checkpoints are involved, and then there's immune system which always comes handy to check the to check the growth of this, or check the transformation of normal cells into cancerous cells. Then limiting alcohol. Alcohol is one of those nutritional agents that would lead to cancer, okay. So we're not talking about so we are basically, when we talk about alcohol consumption, we are talking about habitual alcohol consumption, okay, or which may include alcoholism, okay. Then maintaining a healthy weight, okay. Obesity often leads to cancer, okay. Now minimizing your exposure to radiation and toxic chemicals. So staying away from radiation, ionizing radiations and chemicals, the different carcinogens that we saw, is always a good idea. Then not smoking or chewing tobacco. So tobacco chewing or smoking it there's a lot of significant correlation between these and lung and oral cancers. Okay, so staying away from tobacco is always a good idea. Then reducing sun exposure, especially if you burn easily. So now there are people who are more prone to getting suntan. So those people basically have sensitive skin. So those people should refrain from getting too much sun exposure, because as we discussed, the sun's rays contain harmful radiation that will cause cancer. Okay. And then with this we end today's class. Okay, so in the next class we'll discuss about AIDS, okay, HIV and AIDS. Then we'll talk about the different vaccines, and then we'll talk about adolescents. Okay, thank you.